Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. The United States is the richest and most powerful nation in the history of the world. Yet poverty is with us. And my guest today says poverty is growing right here in Western Kentucky as well as nationwide. She is Heidi Suhrheinrich, Executive Director of the Paducah Cooperative Ministry. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Let's begin by defining what the Paducah Cooperative Ministry is. Give us a little history lesson.
Okay. It's what its name implies. It's a local ministry, Paducah. It's a cooperative effort of area congregations doing ministry, which is responding to basic human needs. Our mission statement says that we will seek to do God's work with human hands by responding to basic human needs and conditions in this community. So the cooperative part is pretty impressive in that it reflects nearly every major denomination in McCracken County. It is an interfaith ministry supported as well by Temple Israel, and we have been around for 35 years. And I think that's I'm not from here originally, so I think that is very impressive for a community of this size to have the faith community come together 35 years ago with that kind of vision and be able to sustain it and to grow it.
Oh, yeah. What are the services the PCM offers to the community?
Well, in responding to basic human needs and conditions, back 35 years ago, the small handful of churches started with a food pantry. And they pooled their resources and established that as the nucleus. Since that time, we've added to that. We provide emergency groceries to an average of over 400 households a month. There's a tremendous amount of food that goes through the Paducah Cooperative Ministry Food Pantry program. We have folks that come in and tell me, Heidi, they're going to shut off my electricity. I got behind, I can't pay it. Can you help? Or I lost my job, I've just got another one, but I'm behind in my rent, I'm afraid I'm going to be evicted. Or I've been sick, I went to the ER last night and they prescribed an antibiotic, I've got bronchitis, I can't miss work, I can't afford the prescription, can you help with that? I can't be sick, I can't stay home, I got to work. So we assist with those kinds of urgent financial needs. The emergency homeless shelter is another program that we have. We can house men, women, families with children in our homeless shelter program. Those are the big three. There are a lot of other smaller programs that we have.
And that's interesting. You were talking about homelessness. I guess people in Western Kentucky think of homelessness as a big city problem. You see on television the people living on the grates outside and under bridges and things like that.
Right.
But it's here in Paducah too.
Absolutely, absolutely. The difference, Barry, I think, is that in the big cities, the numbers have just mushroomed and swelled beyond what the city can begin to respond to. In our rural area, it's still to the point where we are trying to accommodate folks through the homeless shelter programs. There's a big difference between urban homelessness and rural homelessness, actually. You will find in areas such as just the Purchase area, it's much more common that families will double up, so they're not as easily seen. Or they may live week to week in a motel, never getting enough money, never getting ahead to actually get out and be able to make a down payment or a deposit on an apartment. If homelessness continues to grow at the rate that it is right now, yes, they'll be much more visible in Paducah. They'll be on the street corners and in the doorways. I think that people are surprised to realize that. I think that also the stereotypic image that a lot of people have of a homeless person is a middle-aged man who's lying in the gutter who has an alcohol addiction. Or maybe it's a middle-aged woman, bag lady as they used to be called, with mental illness. And the whole face of homelessness has changed. 40% of the homeless population is actually families with children, 40%. And the average age of a homeless person in this country is 9 years old. So we're seeing more and more families just in jeopardy, just falling off the edge and in despair.
How does the food pantry operate? I mean, people donate food to you?
Right. It's a combination of things, really, Barry. Some of it's a few government commodities that we pick up on a quarterly basis that the government helps us with. We have a wonderful network of support through congregations, through some businesses that provide food on a regular basis. And then occasionally we have to purchase food ourselves. So those three things go together, and we use what we have. For example, we may have received a bunch of baked potatoes from an area restaurant. We may have received loaves of garlic bread and pies from another restaurant, and some fried chicken from another place. All of that is used. In the summertime, we may have some fresh produce. Some folks that our gardeners will bring by surplus zucchini and tomatoes and things like that, which is wonderful, because you think of a food pantry as just being canned goods primarily. So it's nice to be able to give fresh food when we can. But it's a network of support that keeps it going.
And I think also hunger is another issue that Americans associate with Africa.
Other countries.
Or other countries. But it's here in Paducah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And what we see down there is that at the end of the month is the hardest time. We have a lot of folks that really rely on food stamps. And you know, and I know, what the grocery store prices are looking like these days. Well, if you are a single mom with several children, working an hourly wage job and dependent on food stamps to help you get through, they're not going as far as they used to. And the month is longer than you can handle. So we're seeing a lot of families like that that are coming in for assistance.
You'd mentioned before the program began that you've had people who at one time donated to the food pantry and now are having to use the services. That's an incredible fact.
It's very sobering, isn't it, to think, you know, that we have had folks come in and say, I used to donate to y'all all the time. I never dreamed that I would have to come in and ask you for help. And they're embarrassed and at a loss. You know, it's just not something they anticipated. But times can change and turn somebody around in a dime. You know, there's no respecter of who we are. Anybody can be in that situation. Circumstances can change. You know, we've got things like situational poverty and generational poverty. There's a difference.
Explain that, if you would,
Okay, well, situational poverty is something we can all understand. Somebody is in an accident, can't work, becomes ill, gets laid off. Something that's unexpected and out of the ordinary. And most often those are the folks that can get back up on their feet, obviously the quickest, because they have a frame of reference of how it used to be, and they know they can get back there because they've been there before. The folks that come to us in generational poverty situations, it's very familiar. It's the way they were brought up. They don't know any different. And even though they would like it to be different, change is a very uncomfortable thing. And to step out into something that's completely different and unknown takes a lot of work. And sometimes it's just easier to stay in what's familiar than to make those changes. And so that's where it's a little bit harder to get somebody out of that situation.
Do you offer counseling in a situation like that? Talk with people? And
Well, everybody that comes in, Barry, we sit down and talk with them about their situation. We make recommendations as to what we see could be done to help that situation. We connect them with other resources in the community. We'll sit down and do a budget sheet with anybody who comes to us requesting financial assistance. What is your income? What are your expenses? What are the bottom lines? If they don't know how, you know, where did the money go, we do some educating there. You gotta know. You gotta keep track. You've gotta make some hard choices sometimes. You might like to have internet service, but it may be that you need to pay your utilities and let that go for a while. You might like to have cable TV, but you know what? That's not essential to survival. You may need to make some changes there. So we're not afraid to hold people accountable and to educate at the same time. Our feeling is we want you to do everything that you can do for yourself first, and then come and see us and we'll help from there.
Conversely, do you have people who at one time were your clients and now they donate?
Absolutely, and that's the thing that brings the biggest smile to my face, I think, Barry. We have had people come in, and you know, I had a single lady that spent a couple rounds in our shelter, was in the shelter a couple of times, came in with Christmas toys for the children, and financial donations a couple times. She's working at Walmart. She's got a little apartment. You know, she doesn't have a lot, but she's making it, and she's on her own, and she wanted to give back. And we do see some situations like that sometimes.
Do you all help with job placement too, if you can?
What we try and do is refer them to the places that we know they should check in with first. You know, the Employment Service Office,
Exactly.
we've got a list of all the temporary agencies. Places where we know that many of our folks have gotten jobs before, we'll make sure they connect with. And as far as our shelter residents go, transportation can be a tough barrier sometimes. We help with bus passes to get them around to some of the appointments they need to keep, and interviews and jobs and so forth, till they can do that for themselves.
Now, what is your background? You're a Methodist, as you said. So this is religion that prompts you to do this. Your faith prompts you to do this.
I think all of us down there, Barry, feel called to do this. We don't have a lot of turnover in terms of staff. We've got a very small staff, and we've all been there for a good long while. And we don't do it, I think, for any other reason than it's a calling from the heart and from the spirit, that we feel that's the place that we need to be. There's a lot of people that have different types of jobs in the world that I look at them and I think, I just don't think I could ever do that. You know, people who go out to the scene of accidents and do the rescue and recovery, or people that work in some of our nursing homes in the Alzheimer's units. And to me, I think that, you know, I don't know that I have that inside of me. So I think that everybody finds the one area. God has made everybody so different and with different skills and gifts. And you find the thing that calls to you and speaks to you, and that's where you need to be. So, and I feel like that's the way we all are down at PCM.
Who are the other members of your staff?
Well, we've got an administrative assistant, Kathy Rowland, who really wears a hat of many colors. She does a little bit of everything. We have two folks that work face-to-face with everybody that comes in the front door. One with the emergency financial assistance and food, and the other with housing issues. Over at our homeless shelter, we have a full-time shelter director that lives on site all of the time. And so we work between shelter and the office, which is just around the corner.
What is the address?
It's 402 Legion Drive. If you know where the American Legion is, just off of Irvin Cobb Drive, we're right across the road. We actually bought their old building when they outgrew it and renovated it, and they built a new one across the street.
Wasn't the PCM in a church originally?
We actually were in a parsonage next door to a church.
That's it.
On South 6th Street.
That's right. I remember that.
For over about 30 years, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was just a little red brick house on South 6th Street, across from Cooper Whiteside School.
Yes, that's where. And it
And,
was it a Presbyterian church?
United Central Presbyterian
That's
Church.
right.
Back when the ministry got started, they gave us that space rent-free, and we stayed there for about 30 years until we just so outgrew that building that we had stuff stashed all over town. And we would meet, you know, in various churches, and so it worked out for us to move into a larger space about 3 years ago.
Now, are you all administered by a board of directors?
Yes. We have an 18-member board of directors. About half of the board is clergy, and about half of the board is lay folks. And we try and reflect basically the membership that is Paducah Cooperative Ministry. So we've got our Lutherans and our Baptists and our Catholics and our Presbyterians and our Methodists, so that all of the folks that support the ministry feel like they've got a voice on the board. It's an excellent board.
Very ecumenical, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. And interdenominational. You said Temple Israel.
We have a board member from Temple Israel, actually, Mike Resnick. And it's a very supportive board, and they have a calling, I think, or they would not be there.
Now, if someone wanted to donate to your food pantry, how would one do that?
Very easily. They could do it through their church, or they could just bring it down to the Paducah Cooperative Ministry anytime Monday through Friday. We're there from 9 to 4. And the things that we need most often probably are what we call protein items or meal in a can items.
Such as?
Such as a little can of chili or raviolis or beef stew, that anybody can open that can and heat it up in a microwave, a hot plate, whatever, and get full. They don't have to have any real cooking skills. Things like peanut butter and crackers, anybody can do that. we're coming around to the time of the year where it gets a little more intense because the kids are getting out of school. And summertime can be kind of rough on some of these families that are living very close to the edge. And so the food pantry tries to be in really good shape before summer starts. And so things like cereal, peanut butter and crackers, and things that children can eat. We've got a lot of kids that are staying home, keeping house while their parents work, and trying to look after younger brothers and sisters. And just it's hard. It's really hard for a lot of folks.
And donations to your other operations, what would you need for your other operations?
We actually accept just about everything except clothing. We don't have a clothing ministry. We don't have the resources to do that. And there are so many other good clothing ministries that we don't feel the need to duplicate that. But because of our homeless shelter program, we are so happy to receive things like personal hygiene items, cleaning supplies, dish soap, laundry soap, brooms, dustpans, all-purpose cleanser, paper products, toilet paper, paper towels, trash bags, disposable diapers. All of those things go into the homeless shelter program, and we have to buy them otherwise. And with funds being as tight as they are, the more donations that come in of that nature, the more we can put it towards our utilities out at the shelter or helping somebody move into an apartment of their own. We actually do have some funds that help an individual move into their own place. Things like pots and pans, dishes, silverware, blankets, beds. We have an outbuilding that we store furniture in. Really, most of our folks, when they get ready to move out of the homeless shelter, everything they own is in trash bags. They're literally starting from scratch. So if we can set them up with some dishes and pots and pans and some linens and a bed, a couch, kitchen table, they are thrilled to death.
Now, you're funded entirely by donations?
Almost entirely by local donations. We do receive a grant through the state of Kentucky that helps with the homeless shelter. And it doesn't pay for the entire homeless shelter program, but it pays for at least a half to 2/3 of it. But all of the rest comes locally. And to me, that's amazing. That really is amazing how that works. It's kind of like patchwork quilts, every little piece by itself may not seem that significant, but when you add all those pieces together, you get something beautiful and functional that works. And so that's how that happens.
When times get tough, do donations lessen? Have you noticed a rise and fall in
Yes.
that?
Last year was a tough year for us. And I expect this year to be more of the same. And I think we can all understand the reasons why. We keep setting new records at the gas pump ourselves when we fill up our tanks. New records at the grocery store checkout. When we buy the same groceries we've always bought, but it costs more and more every time we go. The utility bills this past winter, took everybody's breath away. So folks who used to donate regularly are having to cut back themselves at a time when the need is actually increasing. So we've got kind of this sort of a situation,
right,
which for somebody like me and the other folks down at PCM is kind of a scary time. We're not really sure how that's going to work. We don't want to have to cut any services. We want to keep going at the same level or increase level. So we pray a lot. And we make use of everything that comes in the door. Everything that comes in is valuable and meaningful and is put to good use.
Do you have any contingency plans for if the economy, the economists are predicting we're heading into a recession, more and more saying that. Do you all have any long-range plans of how you'll weather that?
We don't really, Barry. We really don't. It's a ministry and it operates a lot on faith. And we feel it's God-directed and God-guided, so we will take each step one at a time. So
sometimes that's all you can do in life.
It really is all you can do.
Do local ministers tout the program in the pulpit? I mean, do they have like a PCM Sunday where they go and act?
Yeah, many of them do. And last summer we hit some really hard times with the food pantry. The end of summer is probably our roughest time. People get out of their regular routines as far as donations, and the need is so high in summer, so that by August and September, we have dusty shelves that they're just empty and bare. And so we started something new last fall in trying to make it easier for folks to give, because I believe people do want to help. They do want to be a part of it, but they're busy. They've got all kinds of things on their plate already. So our job is to figure out how to make that as easy as possible. So we looked at our congregations and we thought, okay, if this church would just be in charge of tuna fish every Sunday, everybody in the church came.
Tuna fish Sunday.
Yeah, that's right, came and brought their can of tuna fish. Just routinely, it became a habit. And this church over here became the macaroni and cheese congregation. And every Sunday, everybody in that church that came to church brought a box of macaroni and cheese. Then you got your peanut butter congregation, and you got your applesauce congregation. That would keep it ongoing year-round, establish habits, and nobody'd have to make any hard decisions when they went to the grocery store. They just knew an extra jar of peanut butter for PCM every week, that extra jar of peanut butter. And then we can keep a good variety, and we can sustain it all year round without having the feast or famine situation. And so the churches have responded pretty well to that. They were excited about that, and we've even had some school groups that said, well, give us an item, because we want to do that too. And I was speaking out at Christian Community Academy about a month ago, and I told them about this, and I said, and you guys could do this too. The 7th grade could be the macaroni and cheese, and the 8th grade could be the stew, and the 9th grade could be chili, and once a week on Wednesday you bring your item. And they liked that idea, so I'm really hopeful that at least in terms of the food pantry, we'll be in better shape at the end of this coming summer. But I'll tell you what, one thing we've always counted on is the Mail Carriers Food Drive, which is usually held the second Saturday of May.
How does that work?
Nationwide. Typically, folks just on that particular Sunday can put canned goods out by their mailbox, and the mail carriers will bring it in. The unfortunate thing is it's not going to happen this year. The postal workers are not able to do it for whatever reason, and that's something that a number of ministries like ours has always counted on. So that's a little bit of a blow, and we're going to have to strategize as to how to overcome that.
Do you all have a website? Are you online?
Yes, it's PaducahCoopMinistry.org.
And do you get donations from that source?
Not so much yet. That's still fairly new to us,
Yeah.
Barry, but
Well, everybody's doing it. I mean, you've got to
I
have a
understand.
website, or
Yeah.
you're in the ditch on the
I
information
know.
superhighway.
You're really a
somewhere.
dinosaur.
Well, it's true. It's amazing, and I'm also amazed at how many people actually go online. How many hits you get, even a small organization like that.
That's true.
Do you all offer assistance with health care?
We don't. And I'll tell you what, that is so worrisome. Time and time again we run into that. We'll have folks over in the shelter that are sick that we just have no recourse but to say you'll have to go to the emergency room. And I know that's not a good use of resources in this community, but there is nothing else. Folks that have medical cards sometimes find it difficult to get into a doctor with that medical card. Healthcare is a tremendous problem, and it really is contributing, I think, to the rise in poverty. It's one of the issues.
Again, we're running out of time.
Okay.
Your address?
402 Legion Drive, and it's just off the Beltline, the Irvin Cobb.
It's over close to Brooks Stadium, isn't it?
A little bit further down.
Yeah.
If you know where Mike Smith's old car lot is,
Right.
we're right behind that.
Right.
And the
Right.
Elemental Court community is just around the
Exactly.
corner. So
Exactly.
it's near Bridge Street.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Describe your personal satisfaction with this job. You're not in it for the money, obviously. The big salary probably didn't attract you to the job.
No.
From a Christian perspective, you're a Methodist, Lone Oak Methodist Church. I mean, how does it make you feel? In other words, are you putting into practice what Christ preached?
I hope so. I hope so. We want every person that comes in the front door, Barry, to feel welcomed, to feel of value, and to feel listened to. We may not be able to do everything that person needs. We may not be able to do anything material that person needs, but we want them to feel at least that we have heard what they had to say, we have responded to them as a person of value, and we've tried to at least make some recommendations or connect them with somebody else that may be able to help so they don't leave empty-handed. We want to make sure we've lifted everybody up that comes in the front door. You know, we keep a little snack tray out there for folks that come in that are hungry. Everybody's greeted and welcomed. That's important. People need to know that somebody considers them of value.
Mm-hmm.
They may not value themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to us that everybody's treated with dignity, that we give them that dignity, even if they would not take that for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
that we treat them with that dignity.
It's interesting that you use the word dignity. I teach history out here, and I went through recently my lectures on the Great Depression, and that one of the things that, well, the thing that troubled President Roosevelt the most about the Depression was unemployment. And he said that a job is more than a salary. A job is dignity, and a job is self-worth. And you have someone who's perfectly willing to work, perfectly capable to work, and can't find a job. That's a terrible blow. And America, the American people, really a tremendous shock over the Depression. This attitude of, what did I do to deserve this, when they didn't do anything to deserve it. So I think that's a very important part of it, is to build people up.
There are three things that we believe are fundamental. One is relationship building. I have no credibility if I tell you, you need to do this in your life, that in your life. Who am I? I'm just a person with some words. But if I have a relationship with you, I've established some trust with you, the words are going to have more meaning. It's about education. Our folks don't always know how to manage their money. They've not been taught how to manage their money, or how to cook nutritiously, or, you know, there's a lot of things that how to parent effectively that have not been taught, that we feel called to at least try and educate wherever possible. And then the third thing is just to encourage accountability and responsibility, that you as a human being have the right to make whatever choice you want to make here. I think this is the best choice, but you can choose this choice if you want, but understand this is the consequence, and you will have to accept the consequence.
Do people usually go along with your recommendation?
Oh, no.
Really?
No. You know, timing is everything, and change is difficult, as we said. Some people aren't ready to make change. Some people still think they have a vision in their mind of how they think things should work out, and they're going to hang on to that vision. So, for example, at the homeless shelter, we may have folks come back through the homeless shelter program 2 or 3 times, and maybe left prematurely the first time, found Prince Charming and thought that everything would be okay, came back around. We talked about, you know, don't expect someone else to rescue you. You've got to rescue yourself. So let's try it again. Stay put. Let's work it all the way through. So no, not all the time, but we plant seeds. We plant those seeds. We plant those seeds. It's not for us to say when they'll take root.
We're out of time.
Okay.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
My guest today was Heidi Suhrheinrich, Executive Director of the Paducah Cooperative Ministry. I'm Barry Craig. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.